Bluebird Gardens with Mark Boen, vegetable grower extraordinaire, and we're going to tell you a little bit about cover crops. And even though it's starting to be winter here, cover crops are still doing a great job of protecting the soil. That's what cover crops do. In nature, nature never leaves the soil bare, and we should really lead or follow that example because she knows what she's doing. Cover crops can also be used as green manure crops. Green crops that are incorporated into the soil as a fertilizer, and catch crops, which retain nutrients in the absence of a cash crop to prevent nutrient leaching. In various cultures throughout history, cover crops and green manure crops have helped farmers build soil fertility and soil tilth and prevented erosion. Today, we will tell you about the many benefits of incorporating cover crops into your farm, the different methods and timing used for cover crops, as well as how cover crop combinations can benefit your farm.
So what are some of these wonderful benefits of using cover crops? Cover crops protect the soil and prevent erosion. This is important to preserve natural soil fertility and reduce the silting up of streams, rivers, and lakes. Plants significantly slow down the runoff of water, which leads to better water absorption in addition to reducing erosion. Cover crops also reduce soil compaction, which allows for better water penetration and retention. Deep-rooted crops such as field radish or Sudan grass are particularly good at reducing soil compaction because the roots leave channels that water can flow down. The use of cover crops greatly increases the amount of organic matter in the soil. Using crops as green manure increases soil fertility and soil tilth, provides food for the beneficial organisms in the soil. Nitrogen is one important nutrient that can be added to the soil through the use of legume cover crops, such as alfalfa, clover, or field peas. Legumes are great nitrogen fixers and can produce anywhere from 50 to 200 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year, depending on the plant variety and the conditions. Using legumes as a cover crop can reduce or replace the need for nitrogen fertilizer. Cover crops can also help with the pest management. Plants provide food and shelter for many beneficial insects and predators. Leaving a remnant strip in between each row of the cash crop will keep these beneficial organisms around. Weeds can also be managed with cover crops by providing competition for soil nutrients, space, and light. Some cover crops, such as rye, produce allelopathic compounds that actually inhibit the growth of other plants.
The power of cover crops is enormous. It mimics nature, it does what nature does. Nature always covers the ground with cover crops, and here at Bluebird Gardens, our goal with cover crops is to not only build organic matter, but the biggest reason is it feeds the life in the soil. The life in the soil brings nutritional density to the plant, and if it has nothing to eat, then it can't do its huge role. So what is that life in the soil? Well, it's the earthworms, the fungi, the bacteria, the actinomycetes, all that incredible life that lives in the soil needs that powerful snack to eat on, which is the cover crop.
There are many different ways to incorporate cover crops into your farm, depending on your crop rotation, fallow periods, and needs. Cover crops can be grown before, during, or after a cash crop. A cover crop tilled into the soil a week or two before planting a cash crop will begin to decompose, providing food for beneficial organisms and adding to the organic matter in the soil. A cover crop can also be left in place and planted into. For example, a cover crop that has been crimped and left on the field provides an excellent bed for pumpkin and squash vines and assists in keeping the vegetables clean for harvesting. Overlapping the timing of cash crops with cover crops is called intercropping. Cover crops can protect the soil between rows of the cash crop, ensure a home for the beneficial organisms, and provide an alternative food source for pests. A no-till drill creates a small furrow in the soil where the seed is dropped, but leaves the rest of the field intact. This allows seed-to-soil contact without disturbing the organic matter covering the soil. It is also important to consider how to kill the cover crop when it is time to plant a cash crop, or to prevent the cover crop from going to seed. Some common kill methods used for cover crops are crimping, disking, and mowing. Crimping is performed using a heavy roller implement that breaks the stem of each plant in multiple places and lays the crop flat. This method is great if you want the cover to be left on the field, and a crimped cover crop makes the field surface more resilient when using heavy equipment.
You can do cover crops before you plant. We do oats and field peas on many fields at the beginning and till them in a week or two before we plant the crop, which is, in our case, vegetables planted in stages. So we have lots of time to do it before. but we also do it during. We'll plant, for example, field peas and oats and have them between the rows of melons, pumpkins, tomatoes, any of those, and then crimp them between the rows for just a beautiful pathway, but also a cover for the ground all season long. So during is another good way. But then after, so if you're done with your field of peas that just got harvested and you quick till it in, plant another cover crop. And we love our nitro mix, which has a blend of 10 different plants, legumes, non-legumes, brassicas all in one, and provides just a beautiful feast for the life in the soil after you're done with your cash crop.
Cover crops can provide advantages and disadvantages. Taking the time to find out what cover crops are going to best fit in with your production is very important and will save you time and hassle in the long run. Although there are many cover crops to consider, some examples are rye, which possesses weed-suppressing allelopathic compounds, hairy vetch, which is a legume and is great at fixing nitrogen, red clover, an excellent green manure crop, and also nectar crop, which will attract beneficial insects such as bees. And then there's alfalfa, which is great for breaking up compact soils with its deep root system and is also a nitrogen fixer. When deciding which crop is going to suit your needs and carry out your goals, think diversity. Why plant one single crop when you could be adding even more potential benefits to your soils by incorporating a mixture or cover crop cocktail, as it is oftentimes called?
At Bluebird Gardens, I used to like all the clovers, especially as cover crops, but I'm evolving into the cocktail mixes where more than one cover crop is mixed together. One of my favorites is field peas and oats. It provides the grass and the legume all in one. It's fast growing. It's a beautiful one for early in the spring. But my very favorite one is called Nitro Mix. It's 10 different plants in one, the whole spread of legumes, non-legumes, but also brassicas. So it has, for example, lentils, field peas, vetch, those are the great legumes, but it also has the brassicas, the purple top radish, the field radish, the daikon field radish, but then a lot of grasses too, the millet, oats, and then full of carbon sunflowers. So I mean, you have the whole spectrum of everything you'd want in a cover crop, and it would take years to get all those in the soil, which you can do in one crop with the nitro mix. So that's my very favorite.
Now that you know a little something about cover crops, you can see why they can be an important part of every sustainable farm. Thank you, Mark, for sharing your thoughts on how cover crops have benefited your farm.